Hey everyone, welcome to Standout Authors. Today I'm on Kirsten Weiss, and she is a cozy mystery author, which is amazing. I love that genre in particular. I just recently got into it. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into writing?
My name's Kirsten Weiss, and so far I've written over 70 cozy mysteries. But cozy mysteries are actually pretty broad. I've written witch cozy mysteries and metaphysical cozy mysteries and cozy mystery comedies. But the through line for all of them is that the heroines are all going through some sort of transformation at whatever stage in life they are. Because when you're writing a book, the interesting stories are about people who are going through some sort of change or transformation. And so I guess that's actually kinda standard and not so special, but I try to focus on that.
Yeah. Can you talk about what was your first inkling that you might be an author? When did that come up? Did you like to read when you were younger? What was it?
Yeah. I was a voracious reader when I was a kid. I started reading Nancy Drew when I was 5, and I wanted to be a girl detective, but I realized pretty quickly that that probably wasn't in the cards, and so then my next big dream was to become a mystery writer. And going through college, I was always, trying to write novels, and I didn't know what I was doing, but it was fun trying to write my bad stories. And I ended up getting an MBA and going overseas to work in something called microfinance. I came I was overseas about 20 years, and when I came home, I found that everybody wanted to interview me because I had a really cool resume, but nobody wanted to hire me.
Mm.
And I floundered quite a bit, and so finally I thought, "Well, now is the time to write to really get serious and write that novel." And that was just when self-publishing was starting, so I self-published my first book, and then I got an editor who set me straight on a lot of stuff and helped me improve quite a bit, and then I republished it. And I wrote a second one. And then I got an authors cooperative based in Florida called Mysterio Press saw my book, and they were just getting started with self-publishing too. And so they invited me to join their authors cooperative and publish through them. And then I did that for a few books, and then I got an agent and I sold some books to some traditional publishers. And that went okay, but I'm what's called a mid-list author, so which is a polite way of saying you don't make a lot of money in the mid-list. So I realized I was actually making more money publishing through my authors cooperative, which was kind of like self-publishing light, than through the big traditional publishers. And I wanted to make a living off of it. So I was like, well, bye-bye, and I went full steam with Mysterio Press doing this, cooperative, and I'm actually earning a living off it. It's not a huge living, I don't want to mislead anybody, but it's a living, and I'm very happy to be able to write what I want and do what I want.
Oh, that's amazing. I think a lot of people have the goal of wanting to make a living, and obviously, unless you're in the top of the top, like the Stephen Kings, the John Grishams, and all that, you're not making a ton of money. But I think it's important for people to realize that it's possible, and you have to have the right expectations for anything when you set out to be something, because there's a lot of luck that goes into making it beyond, the standard.
Yeah, and one of the things I realized that you need the right expectations, but I've come to understand the importance of knowing what you actually value in your life, because that kinda guides you to what you're going to be writing. There's been this push in even in indie publishing to publish towards the mean, to the average reader, and it's not just in publishing, it's in music, it's in movies where everything's kind of seeming more and more the same because that's where the average consumer of entertainment goes, and that's where the most money is. But, of course, more and more people are going for that mean, so it's harder and harder to even chisel money out of that. But I think if you know that that's what you wanna do, that's the kind of book you wanna write, and that's where you're really going for, then, yeah, go for it if it makes you happy. But if your values lie elsewhere and if you're concerned with, yeah, I don't know, art or literature or just, expressing yourself in a different way and going a little off-road, and you're committed to that and you know what that means it's gonna be harder to make a living at it, but that's what you value, then it's okay. Then you'll feel better about it. I mean, it's always okay to do what you want, but I kind of felt this struggle of like, but I want to do this, and then I'm not making as much money as that person, and it's not fair. And then I realized, no, it's not. It's not about what's fair or what's right. It's about what you care about, and you've decided you care about writing these kinds of stories, and that means your market is going to be a little bit smaller. So that's, and then once I resigned myself to that, I felt so much better.
Yeah, I think it's so important not to get caught in the comparison trap. I think
Yeah.
everyone does this, you know, it doesn't matter how many times you hear "Don't compare yourself to other people." It's just like a natural thing I think humans do. It's probably some sort of biological thing that happens within people, but, the more that you understand where you fit into society and what you wanna do, the better you're gonna be able to adapt and figure out the best way to hit your own expectations versus some expectation that's might be unachievable.
Yeah, and especially when you're starting out, it makes sense to see what other people are doing and decide, do I want, should I be doing it this way? And you go to the writing conferences and follow the market, or vampires are hot, or let's start this new trend. And you're learning, you're trying to figure stuff out. So it's totally natural and right to kind of be imitating other people at the beginning to a certain extent, or imitating the moves in the market. But then there's a point where you need to figure out, no, okay, I've learned all these things. There's all these different techniques, all these different ways I can write. Which one is right for me and my readers, and where am I going to go? And then you need to make your choice.
Mm. Can you talk a little bit about, coming back from your overseas journey? Well, where did you go, first of all? I'm just interested in that
Well,
aspect of your
I
life.
was doing microfinance, which is an economic development program. So I started out in Central Asia, in Kyrgyzstan, and then I ended up in the Republic of Georgia. This was after the Soviet Union had fallen apart. And from there, then 9/11 happened, and I went to Afghanistan to work there, and then Pakistan, and I was kind of finally ended up in Africa for a while. But I had been in these situations where it was kind of anarchic environments, trying to figure things out. And so I thought, well, if I can, run a marketing campaign in Afghanistan on $1,000 and hit the whole country, and it really worked well, certainly I could do marketing in the United States. And none of the companies I interviewed with agreed with that.
Interesting.
So it's like, okay, I just didn't fit in. I'd been overseas for nearly 20 years, and I was kind of a weirdo or an oddball. And like I said, everybody wanted to interview me, nobody wanted to hire me. So it was kind of, but it was frustrating, and it was very tough at the time. But now, looking back, it was a good thing because it forced me to actually do what I really wanted to do and pursue my childhood dream and get to writing.
Yeah. Are there any, lessons that you learned from your overseas work that you apply in either the writing or in the way that you promote your books or yourself?
Well, I mean, unfortunately, there was a lot of violence overseas and a lot of unpleasant encounters with police officers and such. Um, so I had experience with scary situations, and one of the guy I worked for in Afghanistan, he was actually murdered. It's very murky if it was a terrorist attack, which was kind of the most logical explanation, but when you're on the outskirts or the periphery or in the middle of a murder investigation, people freak themselves out. There's all sorts of conspiracy theories. Everybody's afraid, you're going to be the next person, not necessarily a victim of the murderer, but especially when you're a foreigner in some of these countries, you become a suspect just by virtue of being an outsider, and you're the weirdo. And I'm not saying that doesn't happen in America. I'm sure foreigners coming to America become the most suspicious people in investigations and crimes as well. So I think it's a universal human trait to suspect the outsider. But I use a lot of that, the emotional experience, um, writing about my mysteries. Even though I'm writing cozy mysteries, there still are. I still try to give it a little more suspenseful edge. in certain areas. So people, it's a little scary, but not so scary that people are, freaked out and have to put the book down or can't go to bed at night. So that was my big learning there, I guess, or the thing I use the most in my writing is just that experience of being in tough situations.
Yeah. I think one of the things I don't personally have that experience, but one of the things that you might take away from that experience is if you can go through that, like, why am I scared of insert random, non-consequential thing here, right?
Very true. Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah.
all those people that go through like the the difficulty or the scarcity of the mindset when you're going into like marketing my book. I don't wanna bug people with this. Like, there are so many more things that are on people's minds that they're probably not even gonna see this new thing that you're putting out. So it's like, I think marketing is this constant, wanting just to connect with people versus, "Here, just buy my stuff," right?
Yeah, the buy my stuff, buy my stuff, buy my stuff. It gets boring for the reader and for me. So, yeah, I mean, I'm really trying to concentrate on value when I put stuff out onto my Substack or even in my social media. Sometimes it's just, "Okay, the book's coming out in 5 days. Here's what it's about." But, yeah, people do wanna know. There are people who are looking for books to read, so you're not imposing upon somebody telling them, "This is what my book's about, and you may enjoy it." And if you're honest about what the book is about and what vibe they're gonna get from it, then they'll be able to discern whether they want it or not. So that's useful. Um, but, yeah, it's such there's everybody's marketing is challenging in the digital age. The algorithms are constantly changing. I don't even bother paying attention to them at this point. I just figure by the time I figured out an algorithm, it's moved on to something else. So there is no point. So my focus is just try to create interesting stuff, let people know what kind of books I write, when they're coming out, and they can decide for themselves if it's something that they would like to read.
Yeah. One thing that we discussed briefly before we went live was the fact that something like Instagram has changed so much over even the last like few years. Before it started off, obviously just sharing like photos with friends, but as it has evolved, you mentioned that the feed is just like all either advertisements or people that that you don't follow at all. So it's really difficult in that sort of environment to build your stakes into something that you may never get seen in.
That's where I think a site like Substack is so wonderful. I love being able to write in longer form. I love being able to just scroll through people's feeds and see what I want to read and not be attacked with ads every other post, which is literally what I am seeing on Instagram, whether it's, like you said, paid ads or just a promotion by an author like me. I'm a bit of a hypocrite. I also post things on Instagram. But yeah, I love Substack. It is such a godsend in this world where everything's coming at you so fast and it's so commercial to be able to just slow down and read something. And especially I'm a writer and my my clients are readers. They want to read. So why not be on Substack? Why not be writing things that hopefully they'll enjoy?
Yeah. Eva has a question for Eva. How did you build your Substack audience?
Slowly. Well, I I kinda cheated a little bit. So I had slowly built up a newsletter audience on another platform, and then I shifted them over to Substack. So I shifted a substantial amount of people over to Substack. Then what I have found is that notes are very helpful for people finding you. I don't know if you're familiar with Substack notes, but they're kind of like little social media posts, but they tend to focus more on the written word than on images, although you can put images and videos in posts. And it does seem that the more notes I post, the more people find me and check out my Substack newsletter. But I don't have any scientific data. It's something I've heard people say you should do this, and when I do this, I seem to get more followers, and then when I slack off and don't do it, I don't get as many followers.
Yeah. So I think it's just finding the right medium for what your message is. So Instagram is obviously very good for like reels and videos, short clips, and Substack is great for longer form. I want to read a little bit more in depth about this thing. So I think when authors or any other creative is really trying to promote their stuff, it's important to figure out what makes the most sense for what you're doing and who your audience is and how you're trying to reach them.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think there are some genres which tend to thrive more on Instagram, maybe like YA, for example. Um, the kids like the quick clips. My market tends to skew older, and I think they're looking for something that they can relax with and take their time with a bit more, and that's why I think Substack works more for my audience.
Yeah. So just know who you're
Book than posting on Instagram. I do enjoy futzing around on Instagram, don't get me wrong. And I enjoy writing on Substack, but I'm a writer, I wanna be writing, and if I am gonna spend time on something, I want it to be on something where I can actually reach people who are interested in reading my books versus just shouting out into the void.
Mm. Can you talk about writing your first book? What was it like? You're going to pursue your dream. What was the process like, and how did it feel?
It was one of those ignorance is bliss situations where I had no idea what I was doing, and I was writing, and I was just writing from my heart, and I was so happy, and the book there were a lot of structural problems with the book, which I went back and I fixed, but I have to say, there was something very raw and unfiltered and real about that first book that makes me still love it, even though technically it's not as good as later books I've written. I think, I love now I have my beat sheets and I'm, thinking of the journey that the heroine's going on, and here's the dark part, and then she comes out of it, and how's she gonna claw out of it, and how does the, subplot work into that and connect. My first books, none of that was going on. So it was writing was a lot more fun in that way because I guess I'm more of a just at heart, I think I'm more of a pantser, but I've become more of a plotter, thinking about things in advance. But yeah, in a way, I'm kind of trying to get a little bit more back to that first book and just that feeling of, raw expression and just, laying it out there and just writing what makes sense in the moment versus thinking about it so hard in advance.
Yeah, I think I'm re-listening to parts of On Writing by Stephen King, and he makes the analogy of the way that he writes is like excavating bones from the ground, and he's just like digging through it, just trying to figure out what the characters are trying to tell them. So, there's definitely multiple ways that you can approach writing, but I think some of the joy is in discovering together with your characters versus, "Oh, this is gonna happen here, and this needs to connect here." So there's obviously just figure out what the best way for you in particular, and that doesn't mean you have to stick with it, you can change.
Oh, for sure. And there's a balance of for me between the structure and just kind of free writing and free exploration and then trying to bring it all together. But I think I went a little too far a few years ago in following the advice. There's so much advice out there about writing, and I'm kind of trying to peel some of that back now and figure out what really works for me because I feel like it's for me the writing process got a little stale, and I want to get back to
Mm,
that. The earlier, more fun part of it.
yeah. It's always important if you're especially since it's your job now to find the joy in it, otherwise you can be resentful and stuff.
Yeah, well, right, it was literally a childhood dream of mine, and so darn it, I'm gonna have fun with it. I'm determined. Like, yeah, It's a joy to be a writer. It really is. You get to create all these characters and crazy scenarios in your mind and put them on the page and share them with people and get paid for it. To get paid for writing stories is such a dream come true. I feel so blessed to be able to do it. And yeah, just it has to be fun. If it's not fun, I've done something horribly wrong.
Yeah. So even if you get to that point where you're starting to think about, "Oh, this is not feeling good," figure out ways to get yourself out of it, and that can be changing your environment, or it can be any of these things that just change the way that you're approaching things because, the comment saying, if you do something over and over again and you don't like it or whatever, that's insanity." Um,
Yeah.
this just happens to be true. Let's see. We have a question. Can you talk about how you get comedy into your writing and how stand up and improv has helped?
So when I first am writing, what I'm thinking about are funny situations. So there's different kinds of comedy. There's funny situations, there's funny dialogue, there are silly things like funny names, and I try to weave all of that in. But when I'm first plotting out the book, I'm thinking more about the funny situations because those are easier literally to plot. Then after I've written, I'll go back and try to massage the dialogue to make it funnier. The technical term for that is curving to
Mm.
make things funnier. And where my stand-up class really helped me is that there are specific joke writing techniques and joke writing structures which work particularly well when you apply them to dialogue. So when you're looking at a piece or when I'm looking at a piece of dialogue now and I'm kind of stumped, I can go back through my notes of the different kinds of joke structures and realize, "Oh, okay, this kind of joke structure will work with this line of dialogue," and start working with it that way. And there's also ways what I also learned from my class was just ways to brainstorm funny, which usually just comes down to making lists of things and then making unexpected opposites or, what's the opposite thing you would expect from that? Or what's the twist on that? And you'll have this big list of 20 words and 10 of them you won't think of anything. And then the other 10, you'll have, some things which are okay, some things which are totally stupid, and you'll have 2 or 3 which are pretty funny. And so it's just a matter of being willing to write stuff down on the page and cross stuff out and say, not funny, not funny, not funny. This one has potential. Let's work with that. So just that process, which I didn't have before this class. Before I would just sit at the page and think, okay, this has got to be funnier. What would he say? What would he say? What would he say? Oh, okay, that's kind of funny. It's a different approach to it.
I think the experimentation and just playing around with stuff is definitely important, not only in making something funny, but just generally in writing. Like, what are different ways to approach this so that it's not so expected? I guess it depends on what you're looking for, but I think the unexpected is often funnier than the expected. Something I learned in improv, right?
Yeah, I mean that is the joke. The joke is the surprise. And if you can surprise people, you can make them laugh. Assuming it's not a horror, but or a horror novel. But yeah, the more stuff you write down, the more stuff you're willing to cross off, the easier it is to get to something that's truly surprising.
Hmm. Do you have an example? Someone was asking if you have an example of making a list of things and finding out what would be funny.
Okay, okay. I actually have one here. Let's see. Boo, boo, boo. What was it? Ah. Oh, so here's one. So you write down a list of things you love. I have chocolate at the top, and then most desserts after chocolate writing. And then you write down a list of things you hate: lawyers, the IRS, bureaucrats, literary fiction. Anyways, so you write down the list, and then you try to make a comparison between something in the column of things you love and something in the column of things you hate. This was in class. So I'm not saying this is the best joke, but here's since you asked for an example. So, the thing I hate, bureaucracy. The thing I love, sourdough. Bureaucracy is like sourdough. It doubles in size every 8 hours. It's sorry, that's not the best joke, but that's an example
Yeah,
of, making a
sure.
list. And
Yeah,
the list
and
looks it was a pretty long list.
yeah, so you just work with the different combos and see which one could work. That doesn't mean it's gonna be the final or stay or whatever it might be,
Yeah,
but it's just like gets your brain thinking, I think, too. It's not about always finding the perfect thing. It's like, how many different things can I think of? And when you get to down to the bottom of the list, it's like, you're struggling with those last few items, like, I can't think of any more. That's usually where the gold comes from, I think.
exactly.
So it's really about, like, getting your brain to get past the surface level, um, ideas, because anyone can think of the first 10 ideas, but when you're getting down to if you're doing 20, you're getting down to 18, 19, 20, you're like, I really gotta think about this and figure out what it is."
Exactly.
Can you talk a little bit about the collective that you talked about, in the beginning?
Yeah, Mysterio Press. So there is this thing called an authors cooperative, and the way it works is they actually formed it as an LLC, and there's two women who pretty much run it and organize it. We've got about half a dozen mystery writers in the group, so it's just mystery. And when I finish a manuscript, I send it to the cooperative and it goes to one of the other writers who will do the first edit of it, and usually more of a structural edit. And then it'll come back to me and I'll go through everything and edit it again, and then I'll send it back again, and another author will do a copy edit of it,
Oh.
and then it'll come back to me again, and then it's up to me to actually publish the book, and I use the Mysterio Press as the publisher, and I will put it up on Amazon and Barnes& and Noble and all the other places, and we'll help each other with the marketing. We'll brainstorm together about the book descriptions. We will shout out about each other on social media and just kind of support each other. We chip. I think I pay maybe $20 a year to help keep the website going. And other than that, it's all sweat equity. And we just support each other's writing and edit each other's stuff. And so there's a little bit of a time commitment there, but it is so worth it. And it's so nice being part of a community of authors who knows your work and wants you to succeed, and trying to help you make your books better. Um, so I love it. I'm so happy in it.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've discovered, talking to a lot of people is that the, community in writing is so important because writing the actual activity of writing is like just you and the paper or whatever it is. Unless you're doing something weird like, I don't know, like passing off or whatever it is. But usually when you're at least an author, you're just writing from your brain and it's a solitary effort. And it can get difficult if you're the only person that cares or works on the thing and you just stress yourself. So it's always important, no matter what creative endeavor you're going through, to find community that supports you. And then in your case, it's great that you have this collective that can mutually benefit everyone through all the editing and all this stuff. So that way, no one is like paying a bunch of money to do this. You're all just working for each other, exchanging services, kind of like a barter economy.
Mhm. Yeah, I love it. I see there was a question from Peg about whether we were all in the same subgenre, and the answer is no. We've got some suspense. Well, it's kind of mystery suspense. I don't think we have any straight thriller writers. It's all some form of mystery, um, which is interesting. But I still get very good edits, even from the people who write suspense, because I'm looking for structure, not for tell me how to write a cozy mystery.
What would a thriller writer fit?
Possibly. I am not sure. Would have to ask. Peg, get in touch with me. I'll talk to them for you.
So, what are some of the biggest lessons or things that you learned through working through this cooperative?
Oh, I guess my biggest lesson was learning how to edit other people's work and to give them constructive feedback, and when to keep my mouth shut about what I thought about their book. Seriously, because you have to know, is it constructive or is this just your opinion of how a book should go or how this character should go? Like,
Mm.
and there can be a fine line there, but I think when you're very try to be as objective as possible and say, when I read this line, I thought X. if that's what you meant me to think, then awesome. If you meant me to think something else, this is just an FYI. This is what I thought. That's, a little different from saying, I don't think she should have said that, or, I don't think the character should behave that way. So it was a good lesson for me, and it took me a shamefully long time to learn it.
Was it difficult because you're not a professional editor or whatever story structure person to help others in their own writing? Do you think did it take more additional research, or is it just something you intuitively picked up?
Uh, well, I was editing my own stuff, which is always different than editing someone else's things. So I found myself being, I don't know if I was harsher on other people. Um, so yeah, I guess I mostly just kind of learned it by doing it and reading books about it, like as one does. But and also just kind of practice and people saying, okay, that was helpful feedback. That that wasn't so helpful feedback. Like, okay, I'm learning. But I think I'm pretty good at it now. I think I know when to keep my mouth shut and when to say, all right. Again, just try to be as objective as possible. Say, I read this. This is what it seemed to me. Take that as you will, instead of I think you should change it. So yeah, it's kind of about saying more. This is what my reaction to it was, or this is what it seemed to be saying versus I think you should change this to Y or rewrite it this way. So trying not to give people ideas on how to rewrite things, but just say this is where I see there is kind of an issue here.
Mm. Peg has a couple of questions. Is it hard to keep your opinion out of editing, and are you in a critique group?
It is hard to keep my opinion out of editing, and I try to again. I just try to be as objective as possible. If so, for example, if somebody is using a silencer and the gun goes pss, pss, instead of bang bang, which is what I know silencers do because I've gone to the gun range, I will tell them that's not what silencers do. I know every Hollywood movie shows something differently, but I'm just letting you know that's not how they work. And then they could take it for what they want, even though it personally bugs the heck out of me when people aren't accurate. And I'm sure I'm inaccurate with stuff too. So again, hypocrisy. Um, but yeah, it's tough. So I just have to kind of try to always remind myself to take it down a notch and be polite because these people are helping me out too. They're good people. They're friends of mine. I don't want to be a jerk about it. I want to be helpful. Critique groups. I was in a great critique group, and it's just I moved away, and it's just kind of got too tough for me to handle things. So I haven't been in one for a while, but I have found good critique groups. I think you have to take what you can from them, knowing that not everybody is good at critiquing things, or like some people are really good at copy editing critiques, and some people are really good at structural critiques, and some people are really good at, character critiques, and just kind of pick and choose. I'm going to listen to this person on for character because I know that's what they're good at, and I'm going to ignore all her other advice because I don't agree with her. And you don't have to take everybody's critique either. This is just other people's opinions in the end. You have to weigh it very carefully when somebody tells you, even a professional editor, when they tell you they think you should make a change or something's wrong. Think about it before you do it because they could be wrong.
Yeah, I think it's so important to know what you actually want out of the thing that you're getting feedback on, because everyone interprets everything differently. There's no one's going to agree on anything, and it's just does this fit your idea of what your writing should be, and does it help to achieve that? Versus if I listen to every piece of advice everyone gives me, this book will never see the light of day.
Yeah, you'll go crazy.
What do you think is for you the important parts of creating a good mystery?
I kind of I kind of go at mysteries at a very strange angle. I usually start by thinking about what is happening in the hero or heroine's life and what their subplot is going to be that's running through it. Again, I write cozy mysteries, so they're very heavy subplot. Um, because for me, what makes me want to come back to a book is the characters and the antics they're up to and what's going on in their lives. And then the heroine has this life. going along perfectly well, where she's trying to do something, and then a murderer comes crashing into it and derails everything. And so then she's gonna have to figure out, solve the murder for whatever reason. So, like, Agatha Christie, apparently, when she was plotting her murders, it all started with the murder. This is an interesting way to kill a person. How would they get away with it? How would they get caught?
Mm.
That's the second thing I think about. For me, it's like, what's going on in their lives? What problems do they have? What challenges? What are they trying to do? What are the conflicts? And how will the murder mess all of that up, forcing her to struggle through solving it? And I think that's backwards for a lot of mystery writers. I'm not saying that mine is a good technique. I'm just saying this is my technique or how I look at it.
Yeah, I think, one important thing, regardless of the genre that you're writing in, if you're writing about a story, is that if people don't care about your characters, then no one's gonna continue to read your book. I think that's probably one of the things I've learned about, when reading or when trying to write, characters is that if they don't care, then they're just gonna skip over it or, like in certain books, like if I take George R. R. Martin, for example, and I don't like one of the chapters on one of his characters, I'm just gonna gloss over it or read a summary.
Yeah. No, I do get letters from readers saying that they've read my book more than once. And for me as a mystery writer, that feels like such a great compliment because you know who did it and you're reading it again. Like I did something right.
Yeah, so if you have compelling characters in any genre, um, that can draw people in regardless of are there plot holes, does this is this
Yeah.
the best mystery that I can write? Does that matter if your characters are in this environment? What are they gonna do? Like, what is it's really a story about people in places and in situations versus I need to figure out what is the best way to commit a murder or whatever it might
Yeah.
be.
Well, I mean, the puzzle is a big part of or solving the puzzle is a big part of the joy of a cozy mystery as well.
Right.
So I don't want to discount that, obviously, but yeah, I do love my subplots and my characters.
Yeah. I mean, it's both. So it's
Yeah,
like,
we need both.
but I think, something that people can overlook if you're only looking to create this interesting murder mystery is that the people have to be interesting enough to care about.
Yeah.
What are, some of the hardest parts of that you've gone through on your journey of being an author along the way? Not necessarily right now, but across your whole.
Well, starting was very challenging. Starting and not knowing what I was doing, starting and selling the first book. It's like, oh, I sold 3 books this month. Oh, that's very demoralizing for sure. Um, And then it's all there's challenges at every step in the way. There's challenges at the beginning, there's challenges as you're growing and you're comparing yourself to other more successful people and thinking, why are I there? What am I doing wrong? Um, there's challenges when you hit a lull and you suddenly you lose your joy and then you have to try to find it again. A couple years ago, I went through a really bad patch. One of my sisters was killed in a car accident, and that really knocked me down for a while. And I was trying to, keep writing, but I didn't know if I could write comedy after that. It was hard for me to get back to it. I had to, which is actually where that comedy class really helps. Like, here are the
Mhm.
structures. Even when you're not feeling funny, you can figure some stuff out. I got over that. But, there's challenges in any writing career at any stage. But it's so worth it. If it's something you love doing, it's worth it just plugging away at it no matter where you are.
How did you, figure out who your audience was? Did you talk to them, or what was the process of discovering who to write to?
When I got a big enough newsletter size, I did a more sophisticated survey than I was used to doing, but still fairly simple. There were only, I think, 8 questions on it to really try to excuse me, to try to get a sense of who my readers were. And I asked them some basic stuff like, how old are you? What do you do for a living? But also like who are your favorite authors? And, what do you, a good question I asked was, what makes you, I can't remember exactly how to phrase it, but it basically was, what makes you the crazy when you're reading a book? What really irritates you about, whatever the book is. And people were coming up with things like, "Oh, I hate it. I'm so sick of, the detective falling in love, the amateur detective falling in love with a cop. And I'm so sick of, this and that." And I'm like, "Okay, taking notes on that."
Mhm.
But just getting a sense, and also, what do they like the most? What do they like the most about my books? To really get a kind of create a profile of who my ideal reader was. And I discovered my ideal reader is named Susan, and she's a nurse. She's in her late 40s. She's got 2 kids. She's an empty nester now, and she has a very stressful job working in the emergency room. And she just when she's off, she likes to unplug, she likes to relax, and she also likes to read a book about a woman who is struggling through something and then succeeds. She doesn't want to get too stressed about it, but she does want to see, an arc. She wants to see somebody come out in the end after a fight. And I thought, yeah, because they're fighting in the emergency room and dealing with very stressful situations. Pardon me. But it was that's not all my readers aren't named Susan, and they're not all emergency room nurses, but it's kind of like an average. This is a professional woman who has a tough job, or is going through some sort of stressful period and wants to unplug and relax and be a little intellectually challenged too. I mean, she wants to have a little puzzle to solve and to think about things, and have a good character that she can root for and kind of align herself with. And I highly recommend it for writers. If you've got a big enough group of people that you can ask, you want to get at least, I think, 100 responses was what the consultant advised me, more if possible. Then you can actually, kind of get a good sense of who they are. But you don't need to ask a lot, just basic demographics, what annoys them about the genre, what do they love about your books, who else are they reading? And you can also ask where they are on social media. Because if everybody's on Facebook and you're on Instagram, you're not hitting your target demographic.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's one of the most important things that gets ignored for marketing anything is to figure out who exactly is going to be reading your book or whatever it is that you're trying to sell, and how do you reach them, and what things are they actually looking for versus I'm gonna guess and I'm just gonna do my thing, and that's fine. You can write for yourself and
Sure.
try to market the thing that you write, but usually when you're trying to grow, at least from one stage to another, you have to figure out beyond surface level, what am I doing right? You might never know if you don't ask your people, right?
Yeah, and if you are creating some sort of promotion and you know that your readers love reading about heroines who are struggling and succeeding, you can include in your promotion if you love reading about a detective who struggles and succeeds, and then they know, yeah, this is the book for me. It's not about tricking anybody. It's not about, luring them into your marketing trap. It's about telling them what you have and letting them decide if they want to read it. And that is a gift.
Yeah. Make it as easy as possible to
Mhm.
make a decision, and if your thing fits, great. That's
Yep.
awesome. If it doesn't, that's also great because you don't have to worry about them anymore. You're just like,
Yeah, I mean, I don't wanna sell a book to somebody who's gonna hate it and then give me a bad review. Nobody's happy. Nobody wins. Yeah, I might have gotten a couple bucks, but it's just not worth it.
yeah, don't make the false promises if it's not
Yeah.
something it's actually providing. It's a mutually beneficial thing to know who you're writing to and what they're looking for. It's just the way that we're communicating to to avoid a bunch of unnecessary steps.
Mhm.
Great.
Yeah, I think good marketing is cooperative. You're being honest, you're giving them the information they need, they're making a decision, it benefits everybody.
Awesome. Couple more questions left. What advice would you give to an aspiring writer?
I would say it is worth investing in a professional editor. That was what changed me from a amateur writer to a professional writer, is getting a real editor who could give me real advice on where I needed to fix things and about structure and such. And it can be a little expensive, but it's a lot cheaper than getting an MFA in creative writing.
Yeah. Enroll with the help of others if you want to go a step further than where you are. That can be in anything. That can be in editing. It could be in your covers
Yeah,
design. It can be in the marketing. It can be in any stage of where you are. Just figure out what it is that you need to do or want to do in order to take yourself from point A to point B. So if you're aspiring to be Kirsten, this is what you need to do to get there, right? So how do I get from written a couple to I'm making a full time living, and what is it that you did in order to get there? Just learn from what people have done already.
absolutely. There's so much information out there, and there's so many great people who are willing to share it too.
Mm, like yourself.
Yeah, I was just
Like
thinking like
yourself.
this Substack.
Awesome. Do you know any other? I'm sure you do, since you're in a writing group with other people in the press. Any other standout authors?
Oh gosh, there are so many wonderful authors, but I have to say, lately I've been going back to the classics. I think you can learn so much going backwards instead of back into the past. Charles Dickens, Jane Austen. Um, there are wonderful authors. Actually, I was just reading. I've recently gotten into some Japanese authors. I just finished the. Do I have the book here? This one, the Kamigawa Food Detectives, which is a masterclass in writing food porn. I should. It's not actual porn, but just writing about food is so delicious, and it's got kind of a little mystery in it. It's not a traditional mystery. And then there's another one I just started, My Grandfather the Master Detective, which is also by a Japanese novelist whose name I can't remember. It was translated into English, and it is just beautiful. So I think again the problem right now in American fiction is so much of it is the same. And if you don't want to be the same, you have to put inputs into your brain that are outside the box. And these Japanese authors are not writing inside the American box right now. And I find it so refreshing and so um, stimulating and just interesting. So I would suggest if you want to go outside, excuse me, get out of the box and crank up your own creativity and originality. Go back to the classics. Check out these Japanese authors. They are killing it in the mystery field. They're writing beautiful, beautiful things. And there's so much great stuff out there.
Mm. I think it's important to do that, but it's also important to look outside of even writing. You can look outside of writing, and
Oh,
watch
for sure.
documentaries or watch the movies and see what it is that stands out, and how can you make your thing a little bit different. So not only that's less stale, but you have more interesting things happening versus what you would normally do.
Yeah, for example, last night I finally finished watching Stranger Things, the whole series. And what struck me, the last episode is 2 hours. 30 minutes of it is wrap up of showing what happens to the characters and where they are, which seems like a long time, but it was perfect. And I know when I write a mystery and I get to the final like wrap up chapter and the kind of back to normality, I really want to skim through it. But it's so important to give people a satisfying ending. And that was a masterclass in how to write a beautifully satisfying ending. And considering I think it's 5 seasons, so 5 years of episodes, a 30-minute wrap up actually made sense, and it was wonderful. So, yeah, you can learn from so many different things.
Mm. What message do you want people to take away from your writing in your books?
Be weird, be creative, express yourself. Everybody else is following the crowd. It's just gotten out of control. And, why are you writing? Are you writing to follow the crowd? Or are you writing because you have something beautiful to say? The world needs more beauty. We really do. We've gotten away from it, and Um, let's bring it back. Let's say something real. Let's talk about real people, even if they're in crazy, unreal situations, fantasy, sci-fi. Let's get some real characters going through real heartbreak or joy or challenges, and bring those to the page because we need more of that. We need to be inspired. We need to we need more joy. Let's put more joy into the world and beauty.
Mhm. There's enough of everything else to fill the world that we I think the message of joy and beauty is amazing, because everyone that's why we turn to fiction most of the time is to escape from that horrible stuff, right? And these are tales of, doing that, and if obviously there are you can mix in some things that aren't joyful and beauty, but the overall message, I think, is great if it's
Well, the reality is we need contrasts to see that. I mean, that's why here I'm writing murder mysteries and I'm talking about joy and beauty. Well, how does that work? Well, the joy is there's rotten things happen and people go on despite that. People fight forward. People succeed. And things are brought right at the end. And that's unfortunately in our world things don't aren't always brought right at the end. People aren't murderers aren't always brought to justice. And but we need to aspire to that. And so there's beauty everywhere, but sometimes we need to dig it out and be reminded of that.
Mm, yeah. What do you think makes, somebody stand out as an author?
Whew. There's so many different things. It could be, I mean, it could be the prose, it could be the characters. One of my favorite authors, or one of my favorite books, is The Historian by Elizabeth Kostova. I'm not sure how to pronounce her last name. And it's a telling of the Dracula story. The book's about this thick, and it goes through Eastern Europe during the Soviet times, and it her prose is very good. I won't say it's not like MFA gorgeous lush prose, but it's very good prose. She jumps back and forth in time, which normally makes me crazy, but she makes it work.
Mhm.
There is just something so entrancing about that book to me. The story, the way the characters. I think it's the whole package. If you find a character who, excuse me, an author who can bring everything together, the prose, the characters, the tale itself, it's hard to find someone who can do it all. There are people out there though. I think Stephen King is another great storyteller who writes well and tells a good story and has great characters. So, yeah, I guess those are my top 3 things. I'm sure there's other stuff, and I'm sure people will disagree. This is just my personal opinion. This is what I love.
Can you give everyone who's watching a challenge that they can take an action on, to become a better writer or creative or author or whatever it might be?
Okay, I challenge you to pick up a classic novel, read the first chapter, and then write it out, or at least part of the first chapter. I don't know how long your novel is gonna be. And as you're handwriting it, I need to type it. Really look at what structure they're using and how they're doing it. I think the act of writing out someone else's work enables you to break it down and study it at a totally different level from just
Mm,
reading it. And it's a great learning tool for writers,
interesting. I've not heard that one.
especially
Uh,
like if you read the first chapter of A Christmas Carol. Oh, I mean, it's amazing what he does. He does things where any editor today would say, "Don't write like that," and then he does it, and you're like, "It is perfect." I don't know when I could do this, but it's what he did is absolutely perfect. It makes total sense. It hooked me in. So, yeah, especially A Christmas Carol. It's a good one.
awesome. Yeah, so anyone who's watching, give that a shot. Thanks so much for coming and talking to us, Kirsten.
Oh,
It's
thank
been
you, Kevin.
a real pleasure. Where can people find you and all your books other than Substack, which we're already in?
Well, my Substack. I have a website, kirstenweiss.com. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. And of course, you can find my books on Amazon and all those fine retailers.
Great. Yeah. And thanks for everyone who came on and asked questions.
Yeah, thank
Been
you.
a lot of fun. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.